views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good evening and welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk about all different kinds of things with people who put stuff out. And that means editors and writers and journalists and photographers and videographers and filmmakers. And I say that advisedly because our second segment is going to include a whole filmmaker series. But we're going to start off with a staff reporter from the city. She's been with us before. Say hello to Rachel Holliday Smith. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
You wrote an article that caught my eye and caught our producer Rebecca Hemick's eye. And the headline was, "The city kicks thousands of homeless back to the shelters from hotels." I understand from the Times there's been a bit of an update. I'll just give you the background from my perspective. As we watch the pandemic develop, as we watch the hotels go empty, and I'm not only the smaller ones, but the big hotels, nobody had been staying in them. Boy, what an opportunity for housing or for homelessness or whatever. So why don't you give us a little background about what brought you to that article, and then we'll try and update it as well.
Yeah, of course. So what brought me to it was the fact that there's a huge shift for homeless New Yorkers happening right now. As you mentioned in the article, thousands of homeless New Yorkers were living in these hotels for the past year plus. And myself and colleagues have done reporting about how much that changed their lives. You know, they had their privacy. They had their own room. They had a clean place to go. They could, take their medication on time. They could take showers. They just had a little bit more stability in their lives.
And let me add one more thing. They could go to work and come back, because we know many of the homeless people are working people, not able to earn enough money. That's part of it. So
yes, ahead. Absolutely. Many homeless New Yorkers are in fact working. And so, but right now, the mayor decreed, and the Department of Homeless Services is carrying this out. They are moving all of those people who were living in hotels under this program as an emergency measure during the COVID-19 crisis back to what is called a congregate shelter, which is those big shelters where many people sleep to a room, usually single adults. They're a little bit different for families, but we're talking about the single adult population going back into these barrack style, dorm style shelters. And I wrote about, focused on one shelter in particular on the Upper West Side, the Lucerne Hotel, which has been really quite controversial. There's been a lot of uproar in that neighborhood about that location. Single men lived there. Then there was a backlash to the backlash where some locals really took those men under their wing and helped them and volunteered to try to make them feel more welcome in the neighborhood. So it was kind of a hot button place. And I interviewed the men as they were getting on the bus to go back to a shelter on the Bowery.
There's a couple of things at work there. Number one, and this, people who will watch our Bronx Talk this week, they'll know that we did a thing about the design of a homeless shelter in Hunts Point. What we were told during that program, and I'm sure you know it, they don't want to go to the shelters. They would rather, it sounds inconceivable, but the shelters are so bad. They're so dangerous. They're so unhealthy. They're so unpleasant, on and on and on. They're not safe. People would say, I'd rather sleep in the street, or especially now, it's summertime. It's not freezing cold. They'd rather be in the streets than in the shelters. Can't we work something out that we keep people, that we make use of these empty rooms? We pay the hotels, we'll make a little money that they were not making. Can't we figure this out?
That was the idea behind this program, certainly. And the advocates would say, yes. The advocates would say, why are you disrupting, speaking to the mayor, why are you disrupting this program that worked so well? It seemed like a win-win. These people have stability in their lives. These hotels are mostly empty anyways. Why can't we just continue this? But the mayor says it was always a temporary program. This was never meant to be an ongoing thing. And, I'd like to do a little bit more digging into this because I don't know the answer, but I don't know the degree to which tourism coming back is affecting this. Are the hotels having more demand? Will they make their money better, having tourists come in again and taking these hotel rooms? How empty really are they? But you're absolutely right. The men who are being moved from these hotels, mostly men, really do not want to go back to the congregate shelters. Not much work has been done to improve those shelters while they've been in the hotels. So they're the same old places with the same old problems, facilities that don't work very well, a lot of unclean situations, a lot of, lack of security. So people who have to go back there are quite unhappy to do so and are fighting to stay in.
I understand that the federal funding will end in September, but our homeless program in New York City, is my advocacy, can't rely on just temporary federal funding because of the pandemic. We have to have a plan and figure this out. The other thing that came up, which I did want to mention, and you talked about the one in the Upper West Side, which was very controversial, but they also talked about on the East Side. And I know people in the Bronx are very sensitive to it, white wealthy neighborhoods are able to eject these people from their places, whereas many of our Bronx neighborhoods, end up having to house the shelters. The whole thing, what can I tell you? The whole thing is messed up. We have a problem. We got to solve this problem.
And many of the hotel shelters, as you can imagine, are in wealthy neighborhoods in Manhattan. They're in Midtown. I mentioned the Upper West Side, but actually most of them are centered in Hell's Kitchen, Midtown, places where, yes, there are many homeless people, but there have never been this many shelters, at least in recent memory. So people were really furious about it, and they were seeing the change on their street, and they were complaining about quality of life concerns. And meanwhile, you're absolutely right. In the Bronx, many communities have more than their fair share of shelters and take them fairly quietly. I'll say that with a huge caveat that that's not true across the board. But it's a really big difference between different neighborhoods when it comes to, hosting unhoused New Yorkers, of which there are so many.
My thing is in doing what I do for a living here on BronxNet Television is to show that these things can be done. And if you look at West 235th Street, across the street, a little bit down the block, across the street from Staples, in the Bronx on Broadway, there was a lot of talk about a shelter being put there. It was not a men's shelter, I understand that, but people were very concerned. But the neighborhood embraced them. They brought them in there, and now you can walk by there. There's not a peep. You don't get, and that's because they provided services. If you just throw these things up and don't provide the services, well, we're not going to get anywhere. So vision, I'm thinking vision. Maybe the new mayor will have vision. I don't know.
Yeah. And I'll say that I've done a lot of reporting on shelters, and it often is the provider of that shelter that makes a huge difference. If you've got a good provider, it's usually no problem. I reported for many months on some Crown Heights shelters that had a lot of pushback when they were first proposed, and then went back a year and a half later, interviewed the same neighbors who had sued to keep those shelters off their block. And they said, oh, it's actually no big deal. They're okay. We're pretty much okay.
They're okay. And we're not bad people. We'd like people to do better. I mean, why not? The other thing that was interesting, and this is, I understand the Legal Aid Society has interceded and they're trying to reverse the city's policy. The question will be how quickly. Another issue in this whole morass of what to do here is the notion of these people in many cases are not vaccinated. And we know what populations have mostly got vaccinated, educated people, we know the whole thing. It would be nice if we made sure that if they're staying in city-run hotels or city-funded hotels, that we got everybody vaccinated. And for me, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't want to be in a shelter without being vaccinated, especially in this day and age. We haven't cleared the thing out,
I absolutely agree. And I talked to a man who was living at the Lucerne who is not vaccinated himself, and he's going to a congregate shelter, and he said he didn't want to get vaccinated, but also had a concern about people not being vaccinated. It's incongruous. I didn't know what to make of it quite, but we don't know how many homeless New Yorkers or people in the shelters are vaccinated. The Department of Homeless Services has said how many people they vaccinated in general, but because they don't track, how many people in their system go and get vaccinated elsewhere, or, who may be opting out. We don't really know the total figure, but it's certainly lower than the general population. There's a lot of hesitancy. And again, these are really crowded conditions. These shelters, have many, many people sleeping in the same room. So I am personally worried about the variants here and the people who are not vaccinated. And there remains to be seen how that plays out with this move, with thousands of homeless people moving back to these shelters.
Yeah, I can't forgive, the gentleman who says, you be vaccinated, but I don't want to be vaccinated. I'm not going there. What do you, now Eric Adams has talked about supporting the notion of using hotels. Do you have a sense if, and my guess is, by the way, with the new city council, I know many of the presumed elected people who will be elected to the city council from the Bronx, I think they would all be for a kind of a new look at homelessness. Do you have a sense of what we're in for with Eric Adams and the new city council?
I haven't read up on that a ton. I really don't know exactly, especially in the Bronx, I don't know the council members, like what they're thinking about housing or how they're thinking about dealing with the homeless population. But I know, there's a lot of new progressive voices and a lot of people who say, the solution here is housing. It's, that little thing. And Eric Adams himself has said, he's willing to do some things that previous mayors are not willing to do to up the number of units that are, actually produced and bringing new units online. But we've heard these promises before from other mayors and other city councils. We need more housing, but it comes down to who has the political will to actually make it happen, especially in neighborhoods that don't want it. And that's a huge factor here. I mean, you see one shelter open on the Upper West Side. I'll go back to that just because, it is quite a contentious area. And you just get enormous pushback, lawsuits, people spending serious money to keep those folks out of their neighborhoods. Same fights with
of course, for many of our Bronx neighborhoods, those are people with money and with political clout. And of course, people in the Bronx who fight these things, would like to have, kind of an equal opportunity to really evaluate what should be done. Now, just before we run out of time, for you, what's next? Are you working more on this? Are you working more on stuff?
I'm tracking this a bit and just keeping my eye on these hotel shelters for sure. But I'm also working with some colleagues to look at exactly why people are not taking the vaccine, vaccine hesitancy, what those populations look like, where we're seeing vaccines not being taken, which pockets of the city still maybe remain as places where you can convince people to take the vaccine. And also just, we're past the election, but there's still some explaining to do to people about, the final count, what it means for the new city council, who the speaker might be. I mean, there's lots of things to catch up on there.
One of the things that characterizes the city, which I appreciate, is the in-depth reporting. You don't just throw something against the wall and, well, here's your article. We get the study, we get the investigation, and I and many others, of course, certainly appreciate your work and your colleagues at the city. I did see that the governor talked about 1% of 1% of the population still is testing positive, so it's out there.
Very much.
Anyway,
and it's
Rachel,
slightly.
We got to run. Rachel Holliday Smith from the city, thank you so much. Thanks for your great work. We'll keep reading you in the city, and we'll appreciate it and see you next time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, folks. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Mott Haven Film Festival. It's a Bronx thing. You got to be part of it. Don't go away.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz, and I'm thrilled that my friend Ninoska is here. She's with the Mott Haven. She is the Mott Haven Film Festival, if you must know. And nice to have you with us, Ninoska.
Nice to be here, Garry. How are you?
I'm well, and I didn't say it in the first segment, but I am in Florida for some very good reasons. But we're going to let that go because we want to talk about films. I want to. I don't know when the last time you were on the program, but tell me a little bit about trying to do what you do through 2020 and the pandemic, what you had to deal with, and then, of course, we're going to lead to something very exciting that we're going to talk about tonight.
So for 2020, we had to change our strategy when it came to fundraising. And the best way to do that was to participate in pop-ups, farmers markets, and flea markets. So that's what we did throughout the entire summer. Of course, we were very cautious and very careful. Sometimes we even wore gloves. We had masks on, and, it was just to give out flyers and, raise awareness and funds at the same time that we were in existence. And a lot of people were happy about that. And we were also able to educate the community of saying what a film festival is and that we're here and we're here to stay.
I thought it was real, as you know, I saw you a number of times at the James Baldwin Outdoor Learning Center.
Yes, my favorite, yeah.
I thought it was interesting to see you there because people are selling foods and they're changing their lives and all that. Just talk to me about how that worked out. Did people really come by and say, wow, this is kind of part of the whole farmers market thing in the Bronx? It was interesting to me. I thought it was creative. I thought it was smart.
I am very grateful for them because they are the farmers market that allows us to be there. There's usually a lot of restrictions when it comes to farmers markets. They don't want you like selling or marketing anything. And fortunately for me, I am able to do that there. And I'm part of the family, a part of their ambiance every week. And I'm really happy about that. They opened their arms, they welcomed me, and I'm very happy to be there every week.
And did attendees come by and say hello?
Yes.
And you wanted to sign people up? Is that what you did?
So what I do is I'm there, and I explain what we do, who we are, and people are very excited that there's a film festival in the Bronx, first of all, because most of us, like myself included, didn't know that even existed in the Bronx. That's why I created the Mott Haven Film Festival. But then you also have people that are supportive of the arts, so they will buy merchandise, they donate. They're excited and they're looking forward to submitting their content, or they'll tell a friend like, hey, I know someone that's a filmmaker. So it's a really exciting time to always be there. But the best part is that since I am the founder, they're even more excited that I'm the one that's there kind of like promoting the film festival.
That's great. And so you feel like the ownership. I just think the whole notion of farmers markets in our borough is exploding. And if you go to any neighborhood and you say, we're going to do this, everybody will say, oh yeah, that's what we need. And so I appreciate that you recognize it's not only about food and health and those kinds of things. It's about mental health and, of course, our creativity, of course, who we are. So let's talk about the film festival that you have coming up. This is the first one since the pandemic. Is that the first one that's happening, right?
Yes. So this is what we like to call the mini film festival.
Okay.
We will only be screening 7 films, and all of the films were awarded at a different capacity, like Best Director, Best Experimental. So we do have some of the award-winning films that we will be showing, and that is kind of generate like the buzz for October when we will have the bigger film festival, and it's also helping us with fundraising. So we're doing a little bit of both.
And so now, I mean, I've got the date in front of me. It's July 23rd.
July 23rd, yes.
And you're doing it kind of the modern way. So they'll be in person, and also people will be able to do it like online, like we're doing now.
Virtually, yes. So I think that virtual is here to stay. It is giving us a flexibility that we never tapped into before. You can be, like in your case, in Florida, or you can be in California.
No, I'll be back in the Bronx by then.
Yeah, but even if you weren't, at least you have the option to purchase a ticket for the virtual event, and even though you may not be there, smelling the popcorn, you can still be in your pajamas. so that's okay.
You're on your own when it comes
Yeah.
to the popcorn. Do a little jiffy
Yeah.
We're going to show a little clip that you have, but
Yes.
tell me, do you have a favorite film or a film? We don't want to single anybody out to the detriment of anybody else, but do you have something that characterizes the nature of the films? Are they short films? Are they long form films? Give us something that characterizes what it's going to be.
So all of the films are between 3 and 30 minutes long.
Okay.
And most of them are comedies, which is a good thing. The also other unique
I'm
aspect
already
of this-
laughing.
Yeah, right. The other unique aspect of this is that 3 out of the 7 films are in Spanish.
Oh.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, I didn't plan it that way, but that's how it came across.
But that's the Bronx. Listen,
exactly.
know who we are.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly. And it does have English subtitles for those that do not know Spanish. But I think that definitely speaks on the melting pot of culture that the Bronx represents.
Right.
So I'm actually really excited about that.
I'm excited too. So let's take a look. This is like a little trailer we put together to promote the mini film festival, which is July 23rd at 8 p.m. And here it is. Take a look. Okay, there you go. I'm going to give it an applause, and we'll give it all our
exciting stuff.
Talk to me about, if you would, Ninoska, about the health of the film industry. Creativity in the Bronx is always, through the
on
roof.
the top. Yes.
But talk to me about people. Are they able to make films now? Is it a difficult process for people? Just give me some of that.
So it is a difficult process sometimes because there's no resources, right? So people are what I like to call investing in themselves or investing in their friends and family. So there's a need for filmmakers to always, find at least $50 to rent an equipment, or they get creative and they just start buying gadgets for their iPhones, right? And that's like one of the sad realities of the film industry. When you're like an independent filmmaker, you're always kind of like on the struggling side, but that's also what makes you thicker skin and more creative. And you just start thinking of so many other ways of doing things and filming.
Yeah, well, creativity in the Bronx and being resourceful in the Bronx is, kind of a way of life.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the specifics of that in terms of people who want to, get involved with the Mott Haven Film Festival. You provide coordination, you help them find personnel. I mean, because films, of course, involve all that. Talk to me about, and I know you talk about fundraising, it all goes into that.
Yes.
Just talk to me about the things that you do in the Mott Haven Film Festival do, so people thinking about, I want to do this, they know who to call.
I mean, overall, this is one of the reasons why I was so gung-ho into having an in-person film festival for 2020. Even though it was at a very small capacity, it was really important because the people there that did attend, there were, of course, filmmakers, there were producers, there were actors, but we also had talent agencies there. So you never know who you're going to meet. I mean, I'm not in control of the guest list, right? Like people just buy tickets and they show up. But you just never know who you're going to meet. So maybe you have a writer that has the script, and then the director says, "Oh, you know what? I love it." And then there you go. Now you are able to put your creation on film because you just so happen to be at the Mott Haven Film Festival. And that's part of the reason why it's always important to network and to attend festivals like this one.
How heavy do you get into deciding what's acceptable or not acceptable? Or do you say you mentioned earlier that there'd be comedies, so that's nice. Do you get into that, or is it one of these, whatever you bring, if it's quality, will show? I mean,
no, we do have a process. We do have a film committee. And each person in the committee does see it from their lens. Like, we have someone that is a director, we have someone that's a director of photography. So we do have people that are, they have an eye for certain things. And then that's how it gets selected. Of course, my suggestion to like everyone is to make sure that your film has a beginning, middle, and end. We do have a lot of people out there, like, I don't want to single out like anyone specifically, but we do have people out there that they do put something together. And yes, it's great content, but there's no like ending.
It doesn't tell a story.
Going. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, certainly I know that from TV. You do TV
Yes.
news, or, you want to tell a story. All right, let's get all the contact info out there. If you want to participate, it's July 23rd, 8 p.m. Give me everything. Give me emails, contact,
everything, of course. So we are showing the mini film festival at Molly Kitchen, which is at 140th and Willis Avenue.
And I just have to interject.
Yeah.
If you don't know where that Motley Kitchen is, you got to get there, have some coffee, have a little bite to eat. You got to know.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's really, everything is like gluten free and stuff like that. It's a really good spot. But yes,
it's brilliant to do it there. I actually did a reading of children. I read books to little kids there.
Oh, really?
So I knew that's the place where you can be creative. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, no,
couldn't resist.
It's okay. Yeah, it's a great spot. It's definitely a great spot. So I'm glad that we were able to go there. But yes, it will be underneath the stars. Doors open at 7:45. Show starts at 8 p.m. It's at Motley Kitchen. We will be providing a goodie bag with popcorn and other goodies there.
And let's get the contact info. How do people access
contact info?
Do it.
So you can visit our website, Mott Haven Film Festival.nyc, and all of the information is on there. If you want to email us, info@mhff.nyc.
That's great. Ninoska, you're my buddy. Thank you so much. You're doing just incredible work.
Thank you so
saving
much,
the world in the Bronx, and that's how we do it. And we're doing it with our creativity and with things like the Mott Haven Film Festival. Congrats.
One film at a time.
Everybody will see you on July 23rd at 8 p.m.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Rachel Holliday Smith from the city, to Ninoska from the Mott Haven Film Festival. And guess what happens? I'll be back in the Bronx. We'll see you next week.